All right. Well, welcome everybody to this edition of Unlocking Human Potential. Today, my guest is Kevin Lawrence. And Kevin, I was just thinking about how far you and I go back. I think it was at least 16, 17 years now. I don't know.
Yep.
Um, but I'm really honored to have you on the call here today. Kevin is a strategic advisor. He coaches entrepreneurial CEOs and business leaders around the world. And he has a extremely successful consulting practice, and just have a ton of respect for Coach Kevin here. And I wanted just to speak a moment like who you are for me, Kevin, just real quickly. And
Sure.
it's like, when I think of Kevin, um, I don't mean this the wrong way. I mean it in the most loving way. It's like Kevin is like this hybrid of a teddy bear and a pit bull. That's like when I think of Kevin Lawrence, he's like a teddy bear and a pit bull. And it's like his pit bull is just his curiosity and his questions about what makes sense and what works, in the scope of business. And yet he also has the wisdom to when to kind of take his foot off the pedal, so to speak, and really create a place for learning for people. And so that's kind of who you are for me. And, you're a committed father, and you're somebody who's just has an insatiable quest for what it takes to turn a good business into something great, and an insatiable thirst for how to get the most juice out of this thing called life. And that's kind of who you are for me. Kevin has also just published a book called Your Oxygen Mask First, and had an opportunity to flip through that. Thanks for sending that over to me.
Mm-hmm.
And, that being said, Kevin lives up in Vancouver, Canada. He's married, has a couple kids, and he's also, what do you call it? A certified coach with Gazelles? Is that what you call it? Or you don't say it anymore.
Yeah,
Rockefeller Habits guy.
Yeah, I'm just a master of scaling up into Rockefeller Habits, you could say. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Coach Emeritus is the official term, but really I understand it really well.
Nice. Great. Well, Kevin, I asked you to come on the call today to, I noticed that you had gotten involved with Topgrading and hiring, how to hire, coach and retain key players or top players. I guess they call them A players and all that. And I know you had a webinar recently, and I was planning to jump on that. I couldn't do that. So I really appreciate you doing this with me and covering kind of the basis on that. I know one of my clients, I had forwarded that to him. I think he was on the call. He thought it was a really good call. So if I gave you a little background of who might be listening, at least in my audience, in my world, and if you can maybe speak into that.
Sure.
But I don't know if you've had this experience, but a lot of entrepreneurs and business owners, they're either excited about the possibility of hiring, they're scared out of their mind, they're afraid to make another mistake. I mean, they've had some experience where they just don't know if they could do that again. It almost costs them the farm practically.
Yep.
Some are coming from a place I have to hire if I want to grow, or some are I should, and then they get the courage to actually do it, and they're in over their heads, and then maybe they hire a recruiter, and the recruiter sells them on that, and then they end up hiring a couple salespeople, and none of it bodes well. It's like you could say that the success rate or the failure rate of trying to bring on good people and being happy with the experience, being happy with the return on investment, really, really falls short for these people. So I was hoping you could share some insights into how people could get out from underneath all of that burden, with the hiring process, the fears, the discouragement, the disappointment with all that, and maybe share some light on that. And so first thing I'm really curious about is how did you get attracted to this Topgrading philosophy or methodology, and what made sense to you that you said, hey, this really seems to make sense to me, and I want to bring this into my teachings, my company, my scaling up philosophy. So I'll turn it over to you and tell us how you got, how you stumbled on that and what makes sense to you about it.
Yeah, well, the truth of it, Greg, is a lot of people told me about it, that it was a very powerful methodology, but being a little on the pit bull, or as you would call it, or stubborn side, I was like, yeah, I read the book, sure, whatever. But then in the process of doing the scaling up book, I interviewed these 50 CEOs around the world who had built very successful businesses using this particular growth framework. And I asked them about books that had a big impact on them. 8 of the 50 said Topgrading, and they all used the words game changer. So, people give me a recommendation, one thing, but when 8 of these 50 CEOs cite one particular thing as a game changer, I started to pay attention. And I found this expert. Her name is Michelle, and she's a just phenomenal master of this. Mastered it in Asia and worked all around the world with it. And I got her to teach it to me. So I did private. I'm not the best in the classroom setting. It tends to be a bit slow for me. But I hired her privately. And she started teaching me these tools. First of all, we had a bloody riot. Like, she and I had a lot of fun together. But I got to learn the tools, and I was embarrassed about my hiring skills. I am a good read of people. That's my job. And I thought I was pretty good, and I was atrocious because I had false beliefs and mistaken approaches to trying to understand what makes a person a high performer and not. So the recommendations was first level, ignored it. Michelle got me to master it. And then when I started seeing what it did, it was just like, and now almost every single company I work with around the world, India, Middle East, US, Canada, all of them use it in some way, all, because I'm relentless and I won't stop until they do, because it just saves millions of dollars of direct cost and pain. And the thing that really gets my clients there, they just get sick of these big mistakes because they hurt. Whether you got a team of 3 or a team of 3,000, the pain is similar. It just got more zeros behind it if you have a bigger business.
Yeah. Well, I love what you're pointing to here, and that is you actually saw it within yourself. That hey, I'm really falling short here, and in that you go, gosh, if I'm a consultant here, and and I'm giving advice to others, and I'm falling short here, my clients, it's not even their profession. Where are they landing on the scale? So I love that, and it's one of the thoughts I had for you. It's like anybody going through this process, which you haven't shared yet, it's like they should probably go through it themselves. Like I was actually kind of going, I'm not sure what it is, but it probably would make sense for me to go through this, because I'm sure that, one of the thoughts I had is, would I hire myself, if I went through the process? And I'm like, God, I don't know. I don't think I'd probably make the cut.
Well, you would make it for the role you're in. Yeah, but to go be a corporate guy or something, no. Because, and the thing with Topgrading, Greg, is that all it is doing, you go back to the person in high school. If I was interviewing you, I would go back to high school and go through then post-secondary education, every job and what happened, and zooming in and getting very, very specific details. So we would talk about the job that you had back in real estate, right? That was earlier in your career.
Right.
So we go back into that job and we would zoom in, and I would ask questions such that I could be standing in the room seeing you interact with your client and your boss and how you handled a horrible situation. And then I'd be in the room seeing you and your client and your boss in a spectacular situation, but seeing what you did and what you didn't do and your gaps and your strengths. And as we go through your entire career, I get all this incredible amount of data, and then I know Greg is well or better than his own family would by the time we're done the process. And that's why it's magic. We don't ask these cute questions because they're too easy to BS and make up stuff. So it's a beautiful way to get to know a human being. No two ways about it. It's a beautiful way. And then
so you're putting people on a timeline. You're just getting on a timeline and walking them through that timeline, so to speak, and looking for pattern similarity, who they are on that timeline, rather than who they're portraying themselves in the moment, trying to look good. Is that
So
what
if
you're
I
saying?
asked you, kind
Yeah.
of,
Uh-huh.
yes. So the timeline is one element. It's
Okay.
a full timeline,
Okay.
and staying locked into this, and huge amounts of specific data,
Hmm.
which most people don't get. So again, if I asked you, tell me a time when you've had an ethical conflict and you've managed it well.
Hmm.
Dude, you've been on the planet for a long time. You're going to come up with a good example.
Yeah. Yeah.
Tell me a time. Like, so if when I say tell you a time and a person's 40 something years old, they got 25 years to pull from.
Hmm.
And even the biggest jerk or the most unintelligent or laziest person on the planet can still come up with a great example.
Hmm.
But when you're in your real estate career and you're in that particular job, in that particular situation that you told me was a highlight, and then I ask you 10 or 15 more questions to understand specifics and data,
Hmm.
there's nowhere to go.
Hmm.
You can't make shit up. And then
Yeah.
the patterns become very clear.
Hmm.
And then I'll see something there, and then I'll spot it again and again and again. And some of it's good. We all have liabilities.
Hmm. Got it.
But,
Got it.
but lots of it's basically, you're kind of seeing their heart, their soul, and their behavior.
Yeah.
And the way it's been, it is the way it's going to be.
Hmm.
So,
Well, I could see your enthusiasm and your excitement. It really fits for you, that pit bull. You know, it's like, hey, you get on something and you stay with it and you just kind of
yes.
go with it. So that really, I could see how that would make sense to you.
Except you have to do it with a teddy bear costume on.
Mm.
Because if you
Yeah.
go in Pitbull, which is like Interrogator, they
Yeah.
shut down.
Mm.
You got to loosen things up. It's like you got to be having a cocktail and they're loose and you get to the point where they're saying, I probably shouldn't tell you this, but
Yeah.
and once you get to the 2-hour mark, man, they're just spilling,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah.
beautiful if they're a high performer. But so you can't, where people, like it's Michelle who's the master, she teaches it. And we got this course in Vancouver where I bring her up in October. She's teaching us smiling skills. And she and I go around and coach the room because it's only 30 people in triads.
Mm-hmm.
So it's constant role playing almost the whole course. You get CEOs and executives and leaders role playing.
Yeah.
So, but it's like, remember to smile, because most people get so serious. And if you turn into an interrogator, they get tight. And then if they get tight, the information gets tight. And if the information gets tight, the process sucks.
Yeah. Got it. Makes sense.
Yeah, so Pitbull wearing a teddy bear costume is the way that, and that's hard for a lot of people. Never mind just me.
Yeah. Great. Cool. That's exciting. Well, give us a little bit of background. Like, what is Topgrading in a nutshell?
So Topgrading is a guy by it's actually Brad and Geoff Smart, father and son, have done most of the work around it. And before we get farther, I'd recommend if people want to learn, you should read the book WHO, WHO, by Geoff Smart, because or is it Brad? I get it mixed up. I think I have it right here. I don't think I have it here.
Yeah, one of my clients just mentioned that. He said it was great. He said that's
it's the simpler version of it. So WHO is the book to read. But so they've been doing this for years with Fortune 500 companies and specializing and helping with executive hires, key executive hires.
Okay.
And the idea is that normally, if you hire a new person to a company, there's a 25% chance they'll be an A player. And an A player is someone who fits well in the culture and consistently delivers excellent results. Like they deliver what they commit to. Everyone's got some variances, but these people are very high achievers who fit. So 25% chance because it's easy to get wrong. When you get into things like CEOs, it's even lower. Because those people at that level have such great persuasion, communication, and storytelling skills. If you're not a master, it's easy for them to BS you. Yeah. And sometimes you aren't even looking for the right things because you're looking at for a personality rather than a skill set. So the idea, by the way, the scarier part is internal promotions have the same failure rate.
Wow.
Think about it. So we think, well, you've known me for years. I've been working on your team. It's less risky to promote from the inside. That is a lie.
Yeah.
It is equally disastrous.
Well, that makes sense. I mean, we see it all the time. The two people that get moved to manager in the company either have the highest knowledge, technical knowledge, or they're the top performers in the company. You take both those people out of the mix, the knowledge guy has no interpersonal skills, technical, and the sales guy is really great at what he can do, but he's not very good at managing people or teaching.
Or he doesn't even want to manage people.
Right.
He actually wants to go and kill the deal and kill the prey and close the deal.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we mistaken people that we love, and we forget it's a different skill set and different desire and a different role.
Yeah.
So these guys went and built this out. I mean, there's a few fundamental things. Like, one of them is you start with a mathematical job description. Literally. Not all this HR blah, 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 which is useless.
What do you mean by mathematical?
I'll explain.
Yeah.
First of all, you start with a bit of a description, like a couple sentences. But then you have outcomes. Like, what are the outcomes you expect? Like, the results you expect from them in the first, year or 18 months. You have specific KPIs or numbers that success will be measured by on an ongoing basis. And then you come up with, they have a list of 50 competencies.
Oh, wow.
that different humans have, and literally, and you decide for the job on a scale of 0 to 5 how competent they need to be at those competencies. Like, 5 is best in the world, 0 is not even, they don't even know it exists. So if you would take the salesperson to sales manager, there is skills around hiring A players, coaching and training, managing and developing people, specific competencies you'd have to have and already demonstrate. So what it is that if I'm lining, Greg up for a CEO job, I am going to, through all the patterns, be able to measure him on those specific competencies, number one, and then number two, see if the math works. And if there's a bunch of gaps, Greg can't win. So, and that's often why we mess up, is that we hire based on this personality we meet, but they forget they got to be good at some stuff that is not even in their consciousness. So and then there's another layer within the competencies, and this is, Greg, for us, where it's really powerful. We have a belief in people and a hope in people and a faith that they will do great. These guys go, that's not intelligent. So the competencies are color-coded red, yellow, and green. Red means if you ain't got it, you ain't getting it. Right? They say it more nicely than that, but that's really, if it's not there, it's not going to be there. Like drive, if you don't have it, you're not going to get it. It doesn't change. And so there's about 10 or 12, I think, that will not change. So if they're red, that means, and if the person's low, don't BS yourself into saying, no, we can help them with that, because you can't. Or it's insanely.
And you're determining that through questions?
Well,
or assessment?
They tell us.
Okay.
They tell us which competencies can and cannot be worked on. The yellow ones have a decent chance of improving. Green is like, no problem, you can train that. So first of all, you identify gaps, which I'll explain. Secondly, that with these competencies, they keep you from BSing yourself that you can fix someone you can't. So the way, can I give you an example?
Yeah, maybe if you can give us an example within the context of the people that were listening. So if we can bring it, so a guy who's got a company and he thinks hiring some salespeople makes sense, opening up territories, that type of thing.
Yep.
Or the guy who has a mortgage company that wants to expand by bringing in other loan officers, type of thing. Or the physician who is maxed out and wants to bring in other physicians to grow the revenue of the company. That type of situation, or a marketing person or something along those lines.
Yeah. Let me, what I can do here. 1 second. I can do this verbally, or I could share my screen. What would you prefer?
Either way is fine.
Let me pull up an example. There's a lot of data here.
Okay.
And I think I'm just going to find a right example that will give us a decent version of it. It's actually, once you understand this, Greg, it's so simple. That's the beauty of it. Here we go. So if we go back into here, and is there a way that I can share my screen?
Yep. If you go down to the green button, share screen there.
You got it?
Yep.
So basically, this is just one. This is a particular one for what we would call is a HR and admin assistant.
Okay.
And the competencies, and you can see the red, yellows, and greens. They are broken down: intellectual, personal, interpersonal, management, leadership, motivational.
Oh, that's
And you
great.
can, yeah.
Yeah.
So let's take a, what's the example? You said, what's an example of a
Salesperson.
salesperson? Okay. So we would go through for a salesperson and we say, okay, what level of intelligence do you need?
Who's we? You talking about the organization that's going to
Yeah,
hire?
it'd be like, yeah, the organization. So it would be
Okay. Okay.
the person running the business, and if there's a sales manager,
Okay.
they would sit down and discuss this.
Okay. Got it.
And we'd say, okay, intelligence. Well, they probably need to have, depending if it's a simple product, it could be a 3. I mean, again, 5 is like wicked smart, like almost Mensa, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So that would be more of an
So
engineering, selling engineering
yeah,
equipment or something. They have to be really
yeah.
high.
So selling engineering equipment, it would be a 4 or 5.
Right.
Analysis skills, if you're selling engineering equipment, it would probably be a 4.
Okay. Gotcha.
Judgment, decision making, probably a 4.
Okay.
Conceptual ability, maybe it's a 3.
Gotcha.
Creativity, depending if it's a product that's set and locked, it would be like a 3 or a 2. If it's a lot of possibilities, it'd be a bit higher. Strategic skills,
Yeah. Yeah.
So you look at all of those and you would go down to interpersonal. Well, if it's a salesperson, likability probably needs to be at least a 4.
Mm.
5 is, listening, if it's a consultative sale,
Mm-hmm.
it probably needs to be a 4 or 5.
Right. Gotcha.
If it's timeshare, it could probably be a 3.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Literally, like,
Yeah.
And communications, oral and written. If it's an engineering product, it's a 4 or a 5. If it's at a local car dealership, it might be a oral 4 or 5 and a written 3 or 4.
Okay.
Because
Okay.
if it's a management, selecting A players
Mm-hmm.
would be high. Develop, train, coach would be high.
Mm-hmm.
Goal setting, empowerment, all that stuff would be quite high.
Okay. Okay.
And then we get down into the core of the person, energy and drive.
Mm-hmm.
Right? If it's a customer service person in a doctor's office or a receptionist, it could be a 3 or 4.
Mm.
Right? If it's a sales leader that's going to expand and build out South America, it probably needs to be 4 or 5.
Gotcha. Yeah. Now, is this what you're referring to as the mathematical equation for the hiring process? Okay. Got it.
So that makes
sense. So you're creating the algorithm here for a key position is what you're saying.
In simple ways that are easy to understand. So basically, a lot of hiring mistakes is because we just think we need a salesperson and we meet someone who's super charming.
Yeah.
We're like, hey, I love them. They're awesome.
Yeah.
But they might not have any analysis skills, and you have a technical product.
Yeah.
They might have a low drive, right? They might have a whole bunch of massive gaps that will actually make them fail in your organization.
Yeah. Now, just on a side note here, I'm looking at this, and one of my little wheels start turning. Are top grading companies, are they sharing this? Like an organization says, hey, we've determined what the metrics are or the mathematics for a quality, say, pharmaceutical salesperson, and it looks like they're all pretty much the same for that position.
It would be identical.
Are they sharing? Yeah, to be identical. So are they making that available? Are people collaborating top grading stuff? Or is there a database where they're saying, hey, we've identified what a pharmaceutical sales rep would be, what a pharmaceutical manager would be?
It could very well be. I'm not sure.
Okay.
I don't know. It could very well be.
That would be cool to have that data.
It would.
Yeah.
And it's all quite logical so it'd be a great cheat sheet, right?
Yeah.
But it's quite logical when you actually go through it.
Gotcha.
And everyone you hire, they're going to be soft on a few things. Like rarely you're going to find a perfect candidate.
Mm-hmm.
But there's another layer on this, is that usually you identify the 10 that are non-negotiable out of the 50.
Yep.
And it can't be soft on those, because those are absolutely paramount for the role.
Now, I have a question for you. If I'm the business owner doing one of these for a position, does it make sense to have another pair of eyes on this to create the mathematical equation?
Never do it alone. Never do it alone.
So get another set of eyes here.
Yeah.
Either your manager or another staff person or your coach or advisor saying, hey, what do you think? Type of thing. And see. So then you'd have an average of the numbers, maybe to come up with your mathematical equation.
Yeah, or negotiation, because it's about coming up with the numbers you're looking for, number one.
Mm-hmm.
And then number two, it's about picking that top 10 or 12 that just absolutely are non-negotiables.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think on this one, we've done it with an asterisk after the term.
Okay.
just to say those ones we can't flex on. If they don't have it, it's an automatic no. Because what happens is, for all of us, we end up falling in love with a candidate. And most of our decisions are locked within the first 5 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
The rest is just rationalizing our decision.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a lot of other techniques in this we use to make sure that you don't get lost.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
And yeah.
So is this the first step of the top grading process?
Yes. Identify what great looks like.
Okay. Gotcha. Well, for anybody listening to this recording or this podcast or this episode, I just ask them to kind of check in and get a sense, well, how would that feel if you actually knew what great looked like? You know? And because so many, I think people are gun shy, they've made a bad decision, they've done this, but you know, I want to encourage the listener here to maybe take heart in this, and that could actually move somebody from discouragement to maybe resilient or being more resourceful, saying, hey, this makes sense, and maybe I'll go to the bat again around this dilemma around hiring. So I'm kind of seeing this as kind of hopeful.
Oh yeah. And here's what people need to know. Here's what you need to, everyone, you need to know this. The perfect person you dream of exists. They're there. You just don't, they might be right under your nose.
Oh, wow.
It might be an existing person that's in the wrong job. It could be your neighbor. It could be all kind, like they exist. And in life, what I've learned, and I've learned lots of this from you as well, Greg, is that when you understand what great looks like and you seek to find it, it shows up. Most of us, unfortunately, believe that mediocre is what we have to accept. So as a result, that's what you get. And the way that I think about this in my own world is we have a lot of scarce beliefs around this and bad experiences and stories, but it's no different than playing soccer or what the Europeans call football. Every time you get the ball, it doesn't go in the net. But somehow in soccer, we keep trying because it's okay. But we often get really discouraged when it comes to hiring because it hurts more than a goal, obviously.
Yeah.
But it's the belief that it's possible and the belief that you deserve to have only spectacular people on your teams. And the way I explain it, one of my clients almost became an NHL hockey player. He got real close. And I put it in a hockey metaphor for him. And finally he goes, I get it, Kevin. There's no room for dead weight on the ice. I go, duh! But it's like he was making excuses and he was loyal to a fault, like most entrepreneurs are. They people support them, they support them, and they get a lot of loyalty. But when you're supporting, someone who should be playing rec league hockey where you drink beer on the bench, and you're trying to be an NHL team, you're hurting yourself. And you're compromising in a way that's just not needed. So a lot of the work I do with these leaders and that I work with is to get them to say, hey, you're accepting this mediocrity. Let's hold the bar here to what you already want, but you've given up on, and then gradually see how it's possible. Yeah. And it's more psychological than anything, Greg, because it holds the bar very high. And for me and the people I work with, it gets to the point where it's an A to stay.
Yeah, yeah. But, here's what's coming up with me, and I've asked, anticipating our call today, I've been asking people, what questions would you want me to ask, and that type of thing. And, one of the things, one of my clients had pushback. He says, well, I'm entrepreneur. Entrepreneurs just think different. We're very impatient. We're we're decisive. Yep. We're fast trackers. Yep. We don't want to deal with this, stuff.
Yep.
How do you get this across to somebody like a true entrepreneur? They're very decisive, maybe don't have the patience for this. I mean, this sounds like, hey, I gotta put some work in here. I've got to actually take some time and do all this. What do you say to that entrepreneur that wants to grow? They know they need to take up people. Like, I see it all the time. I mean, these business owners and entrepreneurs, they're the technical guy. They're engineers that have started this business and they know it really well and they can sell it in consulting, but now they're trying to hire other people to take them out because they've got other ventures. And and they're just stuck in it, and they can't find the right person, and then they make excuses. Well, there's no good talent out there. So
I just give them a Greg Klaumanzer question. Hey, man, how's that working for you?
Yeah.
Are you really loving it? Are you having a great time?
Yeah.
Are you getting to do the fun stuff in your life you really want? How's your heart feeling?
Yeah.
And we know the answers. So I'm like, well, and again, this is you, man. It's like, hey, I got a way that we can change this permanently. And it's going to be a lot of fucking work.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm swearing, but it's going to be a lot of work.
Yeah.
A lot of work.
Yeah.
And it's going to be hard work up front. But you're going to build a team so good that you're pretty well useless on a day-to-day basis, which is one of the chapters in my book, Make Yourself Useless. You're going to build this team so good that there's not much you have to do. You're not going to be the center of everything, and you can focus on other projects or strategic things to drive your business ahead. But yeah, it's going to be work. It's going to cost you a bunch of money. And if you're open to that, let's talk about it.
Cool. Now, so read the book Who to get a jump start for somebody listening. Read the book Who, and then now, what other resources could people listening kind of grab the bull by the horn and says, okay, my company's this isn't working. Kevin and Greg are saying there's another way, and I'm gonna go for it, and I'm willing to put in the work. I'm willing to invest. What are some resources?
Yeah. Well, there's one more I didn't mention, is that when people say they don't have the time, well, then it's outsource it and hire an expert to do it.
Yeah.
So I've got a couple of people, like Michelle is the best for senior positions, where she does the whole process for many of my clients. The guy who realized you can't keep dead weight on the ice, he just pre-contracted her for the next 25 interviews.
Okay.
Because, so outsource it to someone else, make someone else do it. Then you just pay, either you put your time and energy or you pay someone, or get someone on your team to master it. The other resource, again, for people that are interested, we have the 2-day course in Vancouver with Michelle and I in October, where you can come and get immersed in it and learn it by doing it.
Yeah.
So it's a half day of learning and examples, and then literally a day and a half of practice and feedback and practice and feedback and practice and feedback. So you go and become good at it.
Can I ask you another quick question here? Because I think innocently when I came onto this call, I had grandiose ideas, but the more I'm kind of in this conversation, it sounds like this is a methodology for hiring, but not a methodology for finding people or where they are. Correct. So that's another big sore spot for these guys. It's not only the hiring process. It's like, where do I find good people? Can you speak to that at all, or is this outside?
Yeah, we actually teach them stuff on that in the course, Greg, because it's very important.
Yeah.
Because if you have two applicants for a job, you're going to fail. Most likely going to fail. You need a really good flow to do the initial filter, and then a deeper interview, and then a proper reference check of their past bosses. But you got to start with this. So there are recruiters that can help you with that. Again, recruiters can get them to the door. So recruiters can help, but you need to be the one doing the filtering.
I see.
The biggest thing, if you really are seriously committed, is you and the others in your team commit time on a regular basis to beat the bushes and nurture your network, to keep working on the relationships with those that you know are A's or could be A's.
Yeah.
So no different than a salesperson having a prospect list.
Yep.
Is that the owner and the executives all have a prospect list of the relationships that they're working on recruiting for the next few years.
Yeah. Now, do you guys call that benching or something like that? Is that what you call it?
Building a virtual bench.
Building a virtual bench. So it's like creating a waiting list or possible candidates. The old saying is you want to network before you need something rather than after, or when you're behind the 8 ball.
Especially with and especially because the truth is, Greg, with the best people, where they're already killing it where they are.
Yeah.
Their existing company is taking very good care of them. So you pretty well have to wait for a change in their life or for that company to screw up before they're available. So you might, one of my clients, he worked on this guy for 3 years, coffees and lunches and chats and, And then after 3 years, finally the company changed the compensation plan for a key salesperson, and he was mad as heck. And my guy was able to hire him away.
Yeah.
So and the CEOs of some of the best companies I work with are amazing recruiters themselves. Whether it's LinkedIn or other things, they're always doing it.
Right.
Because these top performers do not just show up at your door.
Yeah. Well, so one of the questions I got was, Kevin, was, do I hire potential or do I hire experience? Now, kind of what you're talking about here is that the top guys are already picked, but when you have a growing company, emerging company, maybe you're not, you're bringing in salespeople, maybe, it's a startup, you're bringing in newer people.
Yep.
What do you say to that in terms of hiring potential versus hiring experience?
Yep. You hire the pattern.
Say more about that.
A 23-year-old already has a pattern of performance or mediocrity.
Wow.
So, yeah. It starts in your teens, man. So you can go back and look at you and I at 23 years old. And you could fairly accurately forecast the kinds of things we're up to based on our patterns. Right? Most people we know, we're way more predictable than we think. Way more.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's the older the person is, the easier it is. So the predictability gets tighter. So there's a wider range on it at a younger age. But you just look at what they were doing in school. How did they push themselves? Those competencies are already demonstrating themselves. So
got it.
Yeah. So you're going to be hiring the person with like 2 years experience or 3 years, and they might be fresh out of school, and they're 35, 40 grand a year. But you can already see and feel that, the desire to win and the skills are already kind of coming. That's what you're looking for. Because again, you're looking for their competencies and their characteristics, not so much what they did.
Yeah, I like that. That's really helpful. So it's not necessarily the experience or potential. You don't want to do potential either. You want to look at the pattern. You want to make decisions kind of like you and I always said. You want to make decisions based on what is, not what might be or what you hope to be or whatever it is. It's like, look at the patterns. The patterns are kind of set in stone for the most part. Yep. What's that saying? By the time we're 7, we've learned everything that we're going to know for the rest of life.
It's kind of like that, Greg. And the other piece is the danger of experience. Like here's a sure way to mess up hiring. Oh, this person's amazing. They're ex-Apple person, and then they spent 5 years at Amazon. They're gonna kill it.
Yeah.
And as soon as I hear that flashing red light, I'm gonna assume that they're a donkey, and we got to go back. Because we get brand blind. We get so excited about their experience that we forget that those people have horrible people there as well. Yeah. And we have a different culture and environment.
Well, I have an example right now. One of my clients, he got referred to a marketing company, and he's met with them, and he's all, I feel like they're my soulmates. Like I feel this connection. I feel really good about it. Now, he's all, well, do I make my decision based on a good feeling, or should I make it on something else? So what do you say to that?
Say that differently, Greg. Sorry.
So like some people have a gut feeling around something. Go, oh, this guy I met with Kevin, and
no, that's wrong. Gut's wrong.
Yeah, gut's wrong.
Ignore it. Your gut is an emotional reaction to a situation.
Yeah.
So. You can
come back to the capabilities.
Here's the visual.
Yeah.
We got a gut instinct. It's wrong 75% of the time at least. So we set that to the side. We have a lot of pride around it. And if you're not sure, just go back and measure your success in the past.
Yeah.
We remember the goods and we forget where we screwed up, right? So what you do is you build a mountain of data, and then you put your gut on top of 250 points of data. That's good. But usually gut alone, most interviews come out with almost zero data.
Now here's one of the things that I'm really curious about, because, a lot of times what the entrepreneur does is doesn't hire an employee, they hire a contractor. They hire somebody to do something, like a marketing person or a web designer or a programmer or whatever it is. Now, I'm guessing this would make sense in those, but now you've got these people that are contract workers, are they going to take the time, or are they going to go through this process? Because most of the business world is kind of doing it from the hip, and they'll just say, hey, screw this guy who wants to interview me and go through these competencies. I got a bunch of other people that we're going to do,
Yep.
lining
Let me
up.
explain that one.
Yeah. How do you deal with that?
So first of all, they don't know you're going through competencies. Let's be clear. They do not know the process.
Oh, okay.
You don't tell a candidate what you're doing. They
So
do
it's
not
invisible.
know.
It's invisible
It
to
is.
them.
It's
Okay.
invisible.
Okay.
But you can take pieces of it and evaluate. I look at everything through this now.
Mm.
So even with your contractors, you might not do the full interview, but when you are interviewing them,
Mm-hmm.
you'll ask different questions.
Mm-hmm.
You will gather way more data, and you'll be sizing them up. The good thing with a contractor is that if it doesn't work out after 3 or 6 months, there's no commitment anyways.
Mm-hmm.
But you do the same thing. One thing that you would do with a contractor, which is the same as with candidates, like when contractors or candidates give you references, you assume it's their friends and family. The only ones you want to talk to is past bosses for the candidate and past clients for the contractor.
Mm.
And you go speak to those people.
Yeah.
And you will be able to almost feel through the phone if that person is an A player or not, based on how they delivered.
Yeah.
So
here's the problem. Time and time again, I find clients, they just spent $10, $20, $30,000 on a web design or an e-commerce site or something like that, and they've got hold in the bag, or they've got to go hire somebody else because this person they got referred to a friend, another a friend.
But they didn't do the due diligence.
No, they didn't do the due diligence.
Nope.
They said, well, God, if my friend is happy with this person, they must be good.
Yeah. And Greg, that's a good one. And if a friend recommends an employee, oh, they're amazing, blah, 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 discount your friend's opinion instantly. What someone else thinks of a candidate, they might be low or weak at assessing people. They might have low expectations or low standards. There's a whole bunch of things that listening to other people's recommendations is dangerous. You listen and you follow it, but then you use your own critical thinking to decide whether it's right or not.
Got it.
So even with a contractor, you should still do your own diligence, and you should still, the rule of thumb. Another thing, and back to my book, I have is called 14x advisors. Like, if you're going to get advice, make damn sure they've done the same thing successfully 14 times before. So if you have a big employment issue, you don't go to your normal lawyer. You go to the best employment law guy in town. You don't go to your brother-in-law, your sister-in-law, or your mom, because their advice is going to be sweet but probably make a mess. You go to the best, who has a track record of that kind of employment issues or those kinds of dismissal cases.
Gotcha.
So the same goes true in these contractors. So just, and again, the whole point of this, Greg, is it's about building your critical thinking.
Yeah.
And then using your gut on top of critical thinking, because gut is helpful. And most of us just aren't critical enough on the stuff. Some stuff you don't need to analyze. A lot of stuff you go with your gut. But on big decisions that can have big impacts on your business, we often treat it like buying a pack of gum.
Well, this is really great. My wheels are turning here, Kevin, and now I'm thinking, how would it make sense for somebody to bring in other providers to grow your business if, like a lot of people are thinking that they're the face of the business and the brand. They're bringing in so much business that if they could just hand it off to other people, that the business would continue to grow.
Correct.
And the only problem with that is that the capabilities of those people, I don't know if that's the right person for it. And then if it really did grow the company, you run into the problem with the person has an entrepreneurial spirit and they're not going to stick around too long. So
I think that's a lot of BS.
Really?
Like, here's the deal. If you're growing a business, you have to get out of your own way. There are tons of capable people who want to be a right hand or an integrator or that'll drive your operations. You've just got to believe it's possible.
Nice.
Clean up your own junk that gets in your way and go and find these people. And if you have a challenge with it, that's why a lot of businesses don't grow, is because they can't get to this next phase of having unbelievable people, which is a lot of our own personal crap that gets in the way.
Yeah.
But you got to have these amazing people underneath you who are doing all of the work and owning it. And that's where coaches, that's where guys like you come in and other people come in to help you continue to move your brain ahead to this next level so you can see having this spectacular team that does almost all the work, and you're like, do, 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 you know, and you're working on what's next.
That's great.
That's more mental, because look at hundreds of thousands of business do it in US and Canada every year. Hundred thousands of entrepreneurs pull it off. Why not you? Right? This is not alchemy where we're inventing a way to convert metals, right?
Yeah,
this is provable, doable things, but it's hard.
Got it. So we started off, and I'm really enjoying this, but I want to kind of bring the pony back into the barn. I know we want to keep this going. We can do another one if we need to, but sure. You mentioned the first step is measuring. Creating the mathematics. So if you could maybe just kind of summarize and go over real quickly. I don't know, is this a 3-step process, 4-step process, and maybe just kind of break it down for the listener. Says here, sure. here's the steps to do this. I encourage you to go read the books and find out more. But in a nutshell, here's the formula. What is the formula?
It's actually 7 or 8, but I'm just going to give you the simple 4.
Okay.
So number 1 is define what great and success looks like in that role. And that's with that job scorecard. So you know exactly what you're looking for and have someone validate it. 2 is you screen all of your candidates with it's about 5 questions. You phone screen them first to get a sense if they're close. It's very different than how your people would screen today, or you would screen today. Then the ones that you know are good, then you meet with them and you do the proper top grading interview, going back through their timeline, gathering tons of data, being able to score them on the competencies. Ideally, you do that with a partner, because when you're learning, it's difficult. You have a lot of bad habits and there's a lot to glean. And then finally, after you're done and you know it, you write up a summary report to clarify. You write a report, fill in the competencies to get back into your intellectual mind, not in your gut. And then you go and check the references. And they set up calls with their past bosses only, maybe past clients if they're in sales, going back 10, 15 years at least.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And they arrange the calls and you talk to them. And you have some questions you follow in the system. But it's going to be obvious when you talk to the boss. If the boss is following the HR policy to the T, you know they're not an A player. Generally, because the bosses will be gushing. It's like a long lost child. They're like, "Oh my God, he was so amazing!" Right? And at that point, then you're ready to go, and you now know them better than their own mother does, and you're setting yourself up to have a great start to that gig. And you should be realistically, once you get good, 80-90% hit rate on getting A players.
Got it. So clarify what great looks like. Screen, have a simple screening so you're not wasting a bunch of time. So, and then 3, run them through the methodology, the capabilities, and determine if they're a good fit. And then if that makes sense, and get some help with that. Don't make sure you have another pair of eyes. And then the last, at least in this Reader's Digest version, is to make sure that they schedule the reference calls, and then there's some sort of questions to go through, but you can pretty much tell whether that reference is an A player or not by the enthusiasm of the reference.
Yeah, and the information you get. And one thing I forgot to say is that reference check, you tell them at the very beginning, because what they call it is the truth serum. So Greg, when I go back and talk to Mark at the real estate company, what's he going to say about this? That's in the actual interview. You do that a lot. So you already know I'm talking to him. So when I ask you, you're going to be way more honest than you normally would, because you don't want to get caught out.
Yeah, great.
It's brilliant.
Awesome.
I love it.
This has been great. I'm actually, one of the things that occurred to me is that this would be great for screening coaching clients. It's like this whole process.
Yeah,
like,
it would be.
Is this guy, who is this guy? Does this guy have a chance at, going from good to great, and looking at that as just kind of part of the assessment with clients. I have that thought with all this.
Yeah, that would be. I never thought about that. That would be.
Yeah, it's cool. Great. Well, anything else you would add with the conversation we have? I know we've touched on quite a few things. It's been a really wonderful and rich conversation.
Of course.
Anything else
it always is when we talk, Greg.
Yeah.
I just say is just believe that it's possible and believe that you deserve it. You know,
Mhm.
if you want to make something seriously happen in your company, and I'll quote Jim Collins.
Mhm.
We did I was in a private small group with him, and he said, hear this very clearly. You cannot build a great company with good people.
Mm. Mhm.
The best you can get is good with good people, but you need great people to do something great. It's just
That's awesome.
it doesn't work otherwise, and that's why I'm just all in on this. Like, let's just not mess around. And I'm a
Yeah.
compassionate guy, and I want everyone to win.
Mhm.
Not everybody can play at the highest level.
Yeah, yeah. Cool, cool. All right. Well, thank you. If people want to learn more about you, how would they find out about you, and how would they find out about this 2-day top
Mm.
grading event that you're doing? And if you want to tell us about your book too, you're welcome to do that.
Yeah,
But
sure. So lawrenceandco.com is my site. There's the blog there. I got videos on lots of these things that we're talking about. So lawrenceandco.com. You could also find me under Coach Kevin. And yeah, so the course is in October. You can find more about it there. It's called Top Grading Course. And my book is Your Oxygen Mask First, where there's videos there and also a free assessment you can do. The book is about how do you keep growing and enduring as a leader. One of the chapters is about this.
mm,
It's in the chapter, it's called Make Yourself Useless.
mhm.
Building a team so strong that there's not much you need to do. And that's where I talk about grading your people as ABC players, and using a methodology like top grading to keep stacking the deck with the A's.
Mhm.
So there's lots there, and if there's something we can help you with, just let us know. We're happy to help.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Well, thank you so much. It's been really eye-opening, this whole methodology, and something I am very curious about. I appreciate you making the time here today, and thank you so much
Mm-hmm.
for being on the call.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Greg. It's all right. I love doing this stuff. It's fun to share.
You got it. You got it.